we have Rugby World Cup winner in 1995, Natal and Western Province and Leicester Tigers kicked all the points, didn't you, in the World Cup final against New Zealand? So you're in great company.
Thanks. I feel like I'm in great company. It's wonderful to be with you guys on the show.
You're not. You're way above us. You're way above us.
No, nonsense.
Don't be humble.
I'm down here in the southern tip of Africa. It's we are distinctively miles away from you. But great to be chatting, particularly on after a good weekend for one of the South African sides.
Brilliant. Great background for a passport photo. So well done.
Yeah. I've heard about your room changing there all the time. I'll try to keep mine neutral.
just trying to spice things up. Now, when we get guests on, you don't know this. We ask them a question. It's the same question every week. It would be, if you weren't married or in a relationship, who would be your ultimate date?
It would be Demi Moore, actually.
Oh.
I've got, like, my little runaround car here is a Mini Countryman. My Mini's even called Demi, so it's got to be Demi.
The rides are around.
much to my wife's absolute dismay and disgust.
Can you name any Demi Moore films, Stevie, John?
Ghost, G.I.
No, not you.
I'm jumping in for the other guys.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe was the one I had. I'm struggling a wee bit for Demi Moore films.
Disclosure.
Yeah, she must have been loads.
Yeah. It's fine. Don't worry about it, Stevie. It's fine. Joel, how have you been? What have you been up to?
Shanks, we're all good. We're all good. We're we are. I think in the Southern Hemisphere, we're getting used to summer rugby. It's been a bit of a change for us. Going into, I guess, the end of the playoff season and a little bit of a mid-season break, and then it's Rugby World Cup. So we're all, I guess, already down that road to planning our trips to France to catch up with all you boys on that side and to make sure we're there when things happen.
How confident are you now, Rugby World Cup with South Africa? The draw, the team. So I was a whole lot more confident until Siya Kolisi got injured, to be honest. I think he's a big loss for us. I mean, we've got other good players, but he is a real charismatic leader. He's been in great form. He's played sensationally well. And his loss is a big loss. But I think I'm still quite confident. We have a strong scrum. The modern game is about laying a foundation. The scrum is good. Our set play is good. We have a good, kicking halfback combination. We defend unbelievably well. We're a team that are hard to beat at a Rugby World Cup. We don't always play the prettiest rugby. I think we've started showing a few signs of counter-attacking and doing a few things differently, which is good. But we're a team set up to play Rugby World Cup rugby. And the good thing in our pool is if we do lose to Ireland, as long as we beat Scotland, and if we don't beat Scotland, we don't deserve to be there. But as long as we go to the quarterfinals, we've got a quarterfinal and hopefully a semi and a final. So I am quite confident we can go through and have a good World Cup. And it's Ireland's World Cup to lose, isn't it? So
it is.
Anything could happen.
Yeah. And they're a great side. They're a great side.
Yeah, they are. They are at the moment. I honestly agree. Which now brings us into the first game of the quarterfinals. So we had a fantastic weekend of rugby. 4 games going on. Ulster v Connacht. Now Stevie was there.
Here we go.
We've been waiting for this for a while, and he would have written some sort of dissertation on it.
Just find last year's one, surely.
10 points to Ulster, 15 points to Connacht. Now, we all had to pick who we thought would proceed to the next round, and I think nearly everybody picked Ulster. But this is what knockout rugby does. What happened, Stevie? Come on, go.
I went back and I watched the majority of the match, and it was so flat. Like the fans, first of all, the stadium. We all know that season tickets don't count for knockout games, so the atmosphere was flat. the stadium wasn't full. It just that's not the reason, but it contributes to it.
Well, give us
Food wasn't great.
Yeah, why is it not sold out in a home quarter?
Food was crap. Food was crap.
Well, John, that's a good question and one that I don't have the answer to. But it just feels that if Ulster had been playing Leinster in a quarterfinal, a game that was more in the balance, I think all Ulster fans just thought that because Connacht were coming up the road with such a good record against them, that the expectation was high, and that, do you know what, we'll just sit in the sofa and watch it because it'll just be, Ulster should win by 10 or 15 points and we'll go to the semi-final. But obviously that didn't happen. So that was the first thing. It was really, really flat. Ulster didn't get out of the blocks whatsoever. They brought no physicality. There was rumblings over the last couple of months, as you lads well know, that there's been discontent in the Ulster squad. There's been players not getting on with coaches. I think the big blip in the middle of the season obviously contributed to that. And it was very evident in their performance that, like, you look at the way the Connacht players played I felt like they were playing for Andy Friend's last game. Like, they were at it. The breakdown, they were so powerful. Our friend, Seamus Hurley-Langton, was unbelievable. But the Ulster players just looked like they were going through the motions.
Hold on. Let's give us some context here. John, we're laughing at Seamus Hurley-Langton because Stevie forgot his name and just ended up calling him Seamus. Which happens to us all, doesn't it? Happens to us all.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is in the first half, and as you guys were watching, Ulster barely entered their 22. If they get in once, I think it was they kicked to the corner again to go to their maul. They had a 50% scrum success. Buckley done a brilliant job. That's Milisinovic there, come off the bench, and I thought the game would have been a brilliant shop window for the likes of Timoney versus Prendergast in the back row, Treadwell versus Murray in the second row. You had Hanson, Stockdale, Aki, McCluskey, even Cooney, Blade to a certain extent because Blade's playing unbelievable. But they didn't rise to the challenge. They didn't rise to the occasion. And it was just turnover after turnover. And the longer the game went on, you thought that Ulster might just sneak it just because they're at home and the few decisions went their way towards the end of the game. But the resilience, the fight, determination that the Connacht lads showed, especially in that last couple of minutes, they should have won by 20 or 30 points. That's Tierney Martin there, a brilliant hooker to look out for in the future. I honestly think the Connacht, if they had been on their game, could have won that match by 20 points. And
Dan McFarlane said at the end, to be fair, he fronted and said if Ulster had won it, it would have been a travesty, like a total injustice. He understands it. I agree. Like, it was a 16 penalties. They got absolutely schooled at the breakdown. And again, we've chatted about this week in, week out through the year. What do Ulster do when they don't maul? And it's fine because they're winning and they're scoring maul tries for fun. And you're like, well, that's fine. So there's no problem. They're scoring maul tries and that's enough. But it gets you so far. And they're second in the league based largely off that. And we thought, you got to bring something a bit more to knockout rugby, especially when you're playing. It wasn't a particularly dry night, but you're going to play a bit of dry ball rugby. But when they don't have that, I've questioned it all year. Where do they go?
Surprised, John, were you surprised with how physical Connacht were? Not just for the first sort of 30, 40 minutes, but all the way up to the end, especially that back row. The line speed was incredible.
Yeah,
they were up for it. They wanted it more.
It was class to watch. It was genuinely class. Like the quality of rugby maybe could have been higher in terms of the attack in rugby we saw, but I think it was maybe the game of the weekend in terms of the intensity of the actual game. I kind of sound it as a derby. You think it's a derby, a quarterfinal derby at home, and one side showed up and were physicality through the roof. Absolute mongrel. And we shouldn't be too surprised because Connacht have trended the right way at the right time of the year, but they are still seventh in the league when they finished up, and they snuck into the playoffs in the last few rounds. But the players they have, like you highlight some of the one-on-ones, the battles, and I'd say Connacht won just about every single one of them.
Bundy Aki was really good defensively. Didn't see too much of him in attack, as was Mac Hansen. He had a horrible gash on his head. Like, do you see the social media of that? I don't think we can show it because it's too gruesome.
He came back on though.
Shanks.
Yeah.
With Shanks. Yeah. One thing about Ulster is that, and it's been talked about, more since Ian Henderson has obviously got himself injured in the Six Nations is a lack of leadership on the pitch and like nobody to follow. So like lads, actually making people accountable for their actions on the pitch while the game is in motion and going ahead. It just seemed like everybody was just letting the game pass them by, and then they were like, "Oh, we've got 5 minutes left on the clock. Like this, ramp it up here. We can still win this." And you need. Yeah, that penalty was bad. Many of the Ulster fans saying that Andrew Brace, when he went over to the rock, put his hands out as if to say the ball was out. But I didn't see it myself. But yeah, just to go back to the leadership point, when you take Henderson out of it, and there's a really interesting article written by Bernard Jackman, who's obviously worked with us plenty this season, and he was saying about Dan McFarlane, about having to rebuild this Ulster side. So there's a lot of players leaving, a lot of international players leaving. He had to come into Ulster, build a side, and now it looks like he's going to have to do another rebuild. And the next couple of seasons, if anything, in my own opinion, are going to be even more of a struggle. So,
Joel.
It's hard to take as an Ulster fan, Shanks, is what I'm trying to say.
Joel, were you surprised by the result? Because obviously, you come from a South African perspective, but you still follow the URC, and we're still into the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Well, I think we were all surprised here in the South. We all expected Ulster to win. Ulster had quite a good record against some of the South African sides. They've been, I think probably the word to describe it is predictable, but sometimes we're predictable. So it was an interesting contest against the South African teams, and they were very difficult to beat, even here at home. And they, if I think back to last season, they probably should have beaten the Stormers in Cape Town. They've had a couple of good results. No one here expected them to get turned over at home. But then again, we probably didn't expect a smaller crowd and a less partisan crowd. Not that the crowd should make that big a difference, to be quite frank. But for me, the one thing you guys have touched on is they are predictable. They're not always good at the breakdown, but they are quite predictable in the way they go about things. And a smart coach will find a way around that. And obviously, Connaught came with that real intensity and to be quite frank, that grit defense in the last 5 minutes. They just, by the look of things, wanted it more.
Stevie, sorry, Shanks. Do you think they've got a good enough squad? Forget where the squad's going to go next year or the years after. Do you think their squad is good enough to be in a fight to win a league?
Right, John. So if you ask me that question, and Ulster go and sign 5 or 6 former Leinster players, so those Leinster players aren't good enough to go to play for Leinster, who are winning things. How are they going to come to Ulster and make Ulster good enough to beat Leinster to win trophies? So, that doesn't make sense. I know there's guys who aren't getting enough game time. They might go to another province. They might reignite their career again. Somebody like Jordy Murphy come up the road, 30 Irish caps to his name. Maybe he could have come up. He didn't get he had one good season, one half-decent season, got a bit of an injury, and then didn't get another crack at it. If you look at the Irish under-20 squad, 2 Grand Slams in a row, young guy called James McNabney, who is in the back row for them. The other fella, his name's Ruben Crothers. He captained the Irish under-20s. Those guys are playing club rugby for Queen's University in Ballymena. They're not even been given a shout when it comes to playing for Ulster. So these guys are 20 years of age, signing academy contracts for $6,000. If that was Leinster, they'd be playing 5 to 8 URC games a season. Let's see what these guys are like in a full-strength team. It just feels like we do have players. We have a lot of really good players, but they're not getting opportunity. And if you're not getting opportunity at the highest level, then how can you see what minerals you're made of? So I think the next couple of seasons, John, is going to be difficult, and I think it's actually going to be a good thing for Ulster, because maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, a lot of those guys I've just mentioned will hopefully flourish and come up through, and we'll see a lot more homegrown players playing for Ulster. And last point, I know I've said it before on the show, is the last international forward from Ulster to be capped by Ireland was Ian Henderson in 2012. So we haven't produced an Ulster Irish forward for 11 seasons. That's just criminal. And Leinster are doing it 5 to 10 every single year. So we've so much catching up to do.
So if you could
sorry, Shanks, if I can just add in there, what difference will a guy like Stephen Kitsoff make, Steve, when he comes next season?
Obviously a absolute quality player, and he will add a lot to these young guys coming through as well with his experience. But we've had Rory Sutherland starting British and Irish Lion over the last 6 months, and he hasn't made Ulster, a ridiculously better team. So will Kitskoff, is he a same mold? Is he a better player than Sutherland? He probably is, but he's certainly going to add something to the squad through his playing ability. He's obviously captained the Stormers, so a lot of experience there. So he will be good for the province. He will be good for the club and the younger guys. But will he be the player that wins them trophies? I don't think he will be. I think we need more. We need more power. We need more physicality. We need ball carriers that are like a. If you had told me Evan Ruas was signing along with Free, something like that, then you could go, oh, hold on a second, there's a couple of back rowers that could really, change the way Ulster play. But I don't think Kitskoff's going to do that.
So do you think it's just carriers? Do you think you just need to win that physical game?
No. It's not just that.
McCluskey, Hume, Moore at 15 sometimes, Lowry, Stockdale. You've got players there in the back line that are decent, that can play. So is it?
They can
10,
play
9?
Yeah, I think at 10, I think Billy Burns has lost a lot of confidence over the last 12 months. When he first came on the scene at Ulster, he was playing fantastically well. And yeah, it just looks, as Joel said there, we look predictable in attack. It's quite lethargic. We don't try and outwork teams about getting around the corner. You look at the times that Mac Hansen touched the ball, he wasn't just standing out in the wing. Like Balakoon is just, and that's the only time he gets the ball is when he's standing on the touchline. I think our kicking game has been average of late as well. We have two massive wingers. We never get up and challenge, and we put real pressure on our kick chase with those guys. So yeah, it's for me. If you don't win the gain line in attack, that's going to make your 10s job a lot more difficult, isn't it? So I think it's a combination of getting over the gain line with the carriers, and the 10 not having as many options and maybe not as much confidence this season.
Let's have a look at some light-hearted stuff now, just to try and
please
calm down. Right? We'll have a look at Bundyaki celebration after. What is this?
I would love to know the answer to that. I'd love to know what's been said to make him do this.
Good night.
So I think this is my opinion on it. I think he's saying to all the supporters, you've been sleeping through the game because it was so quiet.
I love the fact the doctor's trying to make him stop as well.
He's not talking to he's talking to Ulster fans, isn't he?
Yeah.
Go to bed. Have you boys, all three of you now, once you've scored a try, have you ever had a strange celebration, or have you done something out there?
I tore my oblique in that game in 2010 in the Millennium Stadium. I tore my first try. Got up through the ball and tore my oblique. 6 centimeter tear in my oblique.
How'd you do that? Throwing
the ball. So yeah, then I was too embarrassed. I played on and then couldn't play the next week.
Joel, what about you? Have you done anything?
Didn't score enough tries to celebrate like that.
Yeah, some nice drop kicks in the goal.
Yeah, true.
Oh, yeah.
Final.
Yeah, my brother told me that he put a bet on me to score the first try. I was against the Ospreys and I scored the first try, and I got up and I went like this.
Alex Popham scored a try against France, and after he scored it, like he knew a watchman, like a guy who dealt in watches. He's like a watch broker, and he said, if you score the first try, I'm going to give you a Rolex or something like that. So he'd come up, he started going like this after he scored the try. I went through a stage of like going to shake people's hands and then moving it away. But that didn't end very well because no one come up and celebrate after. Right, move on to the next game now. The Stormers versus the Bulls. 33 points to 21. Joel, you were there. We listened to you. What did you make of that? First off, the pitch looked terrible because of monster trucks, wasn't it?
It's a major concern, and it's not just the fact that they had the monster trucks there a week or so ago. It's a pitch that it's laid on like a clay, wet soil. So a little bit of rain and the water just hangs around for days and days, and it becomes slippery and wet. Always difficult to play on. The good news is in the off season now they're going to layer an artificial undersurface, and then they'll seed it, and it will be not quite a full Astro surface, but it'll be 10,000 times better. But you quite rightly point out, it's a field that's very difficult to play on. It's a straight up and down field. The minute you try and step, your footing goes. And you saw one or two of the nimble players, a guy like Kurt Lawrence losing his footing as he stepped to go and see where the ball had gone, even more so than just to step with the ball in hand. So tough conditions. But having said all that, the Stormers for me just have a good vibe in their camp. They're a happy team. They look like they're having fun the whole time. They look like they're playing for each other. They are properly dedicated and determined. They are good decision makers at the moment. This fellow, Manny Lebok, needed a big game and delivered a big game. I thought he was outstanding, not just his kicking. And by the way, I was watching him warm up before the game. He couldn't have kicked it against the barn door. He missed absolutely everything. But in the game, he struck them beautifully and a few balls over the top. He read that rush defense brilliantly and orchestrated some really good team tries for the Stormers. I thought the Bulls were a little cumbersome and a little not there. I thought the scoreline probably even flattered them a little bit. They got skinned out wide time and time again. And I think they maybe bet on having Marcel Coetzee back for the game. They didn't get him back. The Stormers got Dion Fourie back and they just got comprehensively outplayed.
Do you think they were a little bit unlucky at the Bulls with a couple of decisions? I thought there was a couple that maybe could have been yellow cards, penalties against them. It just didn't seem to get the rub of the green. I thought a little bit.
Yeah. I think they probably were. And actually, if I think back, they've never had the rub of the green against the Stormers. If I think back to the final last year, they got absolutely robbed in the final. The Stormers scored 2 tries from players who were standing, at the 8th man suites, let alone 5 meters back from the scrum, and had the jump on it. They scored 2 tries from that. Technically, they should never have been allowed, and that was the difference. So yes, they probably were a little unfortunate, but I don't think they lost the game because of 1 or 2 decisions. I think.
What about
the Stormers were better than that.
Yeah, what about Manny Lebok? Like you mentioned, he needed a big game because I can't remember what game it was, but he missed a couple off the boot. He wasn't that good. He played really flat. He was a massive threat. Like, when are we going to see this guy break into possibly the South African team? Like as a number 1 choice, maybe.
I'm not sure we're going to see that in the next 18 months, 2 years. I think the Springbok 10 at the moment is undoubtedly Andre Pollard. I think the backup 10 is probably Damon Willemse. And then I think the race for 3rd position is and it's a shame that Jan Hoos.
So Willemse over Lebok. You think Willemse over Lebok?
I think so. I think when you put that team together, and the Springbok way is about having a 6-2 bench split, which means you can play Willemse. You don't need another 10 on the bench. I think it works for them. So he might be in the greater squad. I'm not sure what the pecking order is. For me, the problem that Mani has, as good as he was on the weekend, and you just said it 2 weeks ago, he was poor, and he has a few bad games. You can't have someone in your starting international side, your Irish side, or your Springbok side who has 1 game in 3 as a bad game. If Mani Lebok could get rid of those errors and those bad moments, he would undoubtedly be the guy to take over. But right now, he still has those bad moments in his arsenal.
Joel, just a question for me about some of the comments that Jake White made in his post-match press conference. I'm sure you were aware of them. Some of them around the hard work that he puts in and preparing clips for referees, and then he doesn't see the same pictures out on the pitch. And he went on to talk about Rassie Erasmus and what he put out on Twitter, etc., etc. And he started the whole press conference, first of all, complimenting how the Stormers played and how they went. But it seemed to be a very negative, blaming post-match press conference of the way the referee operated. And obviously, was it Jacob Piper and Jonker as a TMO? What's the feeling, after that when somebody like Jake White, who's such a well-renowned coach, goes after the referee pretty hard?
So I think there's 2 schools of thought in this country, 2 very clear and very different schools of thought. One is the general public, the man in the street, I think that rugby supporter is quite supportive of a Rassie Erasmus or a Jake White having a go at the referees. I think because the man in the street wants his team to win, and I think the average supporter is quite good at blaming the ref as well. I think the rugby pundits, though, become disappointed in that approach. I think they understand how tough the job of the referee is. They understand that at every single breakdown, there's probably 8 different penalties that could go in either direction. There's far too many laws. It's impossible to actually to manage 100%, and there will be mistakes. I think in the whole, the refs do a really good job. I think in the whole week, we can't really point fingers at them. They do a decent job. They've got the support of the TMO. Most of the time, they get it right. No coach is ever going to agree with the referee on all those decisions. But I think what I don't like to see, and I think there's a lot of pundits who don't like to see it, is that when a team loses, the first thing they do is bash the ref. Teams don't lose because of the ref. They lose because they were not good enough, and in that 50-50 call, the decision may have gone against them. They need to be better, and they need to make sure that the decisions are not that influential. So, I'm not always a big fan of bashing the ref after the game.
No, you often find that people do get fined and banned. We've seen it in the UK. We'll move on now because we know we haven't got you for too long. Leinster Sharks. Now, what a start for the Sharks, Joel. Like Grant Williams, he was in our dream team for the year. Yeah. The fastest player we think we've seen for a long time.
He is unbelievable, isn't he? He's, a great talent. I think every now and then he kicks a poor kick, but when he gets ball in hand, look at him go here. He's got great pace, great acceleration.
I don't think he's even flat
top
out.
Speed. No, he's got
top
speed. More than most wingers this young guy's got. And he's a real handful. But unfortunately for the Sharks, that was about where it finished, right then and there.
Yeah. Did you expect more from the Sharks, Joel? Because we thought they'd at least put a better fight up. No,
I didn't expect more. I think their game has been based on the power and strength of that front row. It's a sensational front row. It's been based on having a guy like Ibn Etzebeth in the second row, who's obviously been missing with injury for a while. And it's been based on a workhorse in Sia Kolisi. And if you're missing, your real physical presence in Ibn Etzebeth, and there's no one to replace him really, and you're missing Sia Kolisi, your inspirational and charismatic leader, and a man whose work rate is just second to nothing, and you are going to be in trouble. Then you add to that, and not that Kerwin Bosch has been the best number 10 in the URC this season. He's played well in the last few weeks. You take him out of the equation and switch things around again, it just creates more, I guess, doubt and maybe more lack of confidence. I didn't expect more. And the disappointing, result was probably, it had been coming for a while, and it was indicative of their season, to be quite honest.
Stevie, we were having a chat before this game, and you thought it might have been a little bit closer than it actually was. Yeah. And after that first try, we thought, oh, here we go, another upset on the cards. But as it happened, it took Leinster a little bit of time to get going. But again, same old. Same old.
But one thing with the Sharks, they just gassed out. Like they were busted. I think it was the last 5 minutes of the first half, and they were scattered all over the pitch. There was no kick chase. Looked like there'd nothing left in the tank. They found another little bit in the second half, but I'm not sure about that yellow card on Mapimpi. Like Keelan Doris absolutely steamrolls into him, and he sort of absorbs the tackle, and the first impact is on the ball, and then it moves up. And I know we had Victor Matfield on last week, and he was chatting about rugby incidents and like how they really affect the game. And then you look at when Mapimpi was off, they targeted his wing twice, and I think got 2 tries out of it. So, I'm not saying the game would have been a different story if Mapimpi had stayed on the pitch, but it certainly contributed to a couple of softer tries that they conceded. But yeah, like Leinster are just a team that made another few changes and are just a juggernaut at the minute. And for me, I think they're going to win the double. Shanks, I don't know what you think.
I'm not sure they'll beat La Rochelle. I think they'll win the URC. I'm not sure about La Rochelle. John, back row, your expertise. Keelan Doris, we've seen him at 6. We've seen him at 8. Problem is they've got Jack Conan as well. And can they both play? And if they both play, can they get the best out of them?
I mean, yes. It's funny because Conan's gone from starting British and Irish line to seems to struggle to get into the Leinster team for the big games. Now which is basically the Ireland team anyway. Let's not forget that. So it's no big thing to not be able to get in that team. I think Caelan Dorset is the best forward in the world right now. I think Anton Dupont, if he's the best player, I think Caelan Dorset is the best forward in the world. I think he's ridiculous. I was chatting to Alan Quinlan before the game, and he was just chatting about him and his, getting a bit of insight into the quality he has. He doesn't seem to really have many bad games. I know he had a few issues with concussion at the start of his career, but you got Van der Vliet. I think they got the best back row unit maybe in the world. So it's pretty impressive. Joe, I was going to ask. I mean, forget the Leinster game because it's at the Aviva, and I don't think many teams are going to go there and win. Never mind, get close.
Yeah.
I had the Sharks as maybe dark horses coming into the league with the squad they had. I know they've lost Etzebeth, they lost Khaleesi. What's the feeling in South Africa towards them? Is there a sense of underachievement, or based on what you said earlier, is people not really surprised by where they've ended up this year?
So I think there is a sense of underachievement, and it's been there for a little while. I mean, the one guy I do feel a little bit sorry for is the director of rugby, Neil Powell. He came in as director of rugby, and I don't think it was ever his intention to be the first team rugby coach. He's a sevens expert, and he's a man who puts structures in place. He's ended up coaching the team. I'm not always sure, to be fair, that he's got it 100% right. I mean, that's the first thing we'd say. And in fact, you would expect that he makes some mistakes as more of a sevens exponent. But there's no doubt that this team will benefit from a guy like John Plunkley. He's coming in as the coach in the next couple of weeks, an experienced 15s coach. But to your point, John, if you take out Siya Kolisi and Eben Etzebeth, you take out half the strength of that side. It's a team that have in full strength, have a big, strong pack of forwards. They have a big, strong tight five that lay a good foundation for their loosies to operate, and as a result, then the backs are freed up a little bit. You take that away, and there's not really a whole lot of smarts left there. So I think they probably need a bit of depth in terms of their recruitment. But there's no doubt in my mind they have underachieved, and maybe for good reason. The yellow cards have not helped, but I think the injuries have really been their downfall.
Oh, Shanks, you're on mute for some reason, pal. Like a team call. Come on, mate.
Ben, what are you doing to me, Ben? He's
mugging you right up.
He's got an island. He's got an Ireland top on today because he used to play for Ireland. So Leinster are through to semi-final. We covered the last game, 3 big dogs, myself, John, and Stevie for Glasgow Munster, which we thought was going to be the game of the weekend because 2 form teams going in. John, we all thought Glasgow would win this, really.
Well, Stevie didn't. Stevie called it.
Well, he didn't mean it.
He didn't mean it. He had to back them. Yeah, I didn't see it coming. Like we'll talk about the red card, which was definitely, we're going to see it now, was definitely a red card. The way the game's refereed now, and the contest was over there. Glasgow had been disappointed. You see it, he pulls his hamstring before it, and then I don't know if he just is worried. You see his hamstring goes there. Is he thinking I can't dip? And he go. I mean, that's.
I think that is down to the hamstring. Honestly, I think it's down to hamstring. You pull your hamstring like that, the last thing you're thinking about is
a leg tackle.
Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done?
Yeah,
and you just didn't get scratched off, mind you, Shanks, did he?
Which threw me a little bit then as well. But you can see, like, by his reaction there, something's happened to his leg. But, John, were you surprised that when points were on offer at the start that Glasgow didn't take them because of knockout rugby, that they went for the driving line out? They went 3 or 4 times, I think. And
yeah, I mean, we spoke about this. We spoke about this after the game, didn't we? And I think part of me applauds the team for saying, do you know what? We've done this all year. We'll kick to the corner and our maul's brilliant and we'll score. But you've got to come away with points and then knockout rugby. It's not like the league where you say, you can slip up in the league, you can lose a game, or you can draw a game, and you come back the next week and you can, not that you can make up for losing, but you can make up for lost ground a little bit in the season through. You need a bonus point. You might go to the corner early. Your decision making is slightly different. So I was really surprised. I do admire what they're trying to do, but I do think, you know, they've got a European final in 2 weeks' time, or this weekend, isn't it? Next weekend against Toulon.
Yeah,
You've got to put the ball over the post and take 3-0. You know, they did it the second time they went to the corner.
Yeah.
He shanks the kick. It goes backwards. They got a 10-meter driving maul. They get turned over, and even at that stage, there was a sense like Glasgow couldn't get over, and you saw the Munster players getting their tails up. And from that point, the opening 20 minutes where Glasgow had all the ball, Glasgow weren't really in the game. So, yeah, hugely deflating for them, given, you know, their record at home. But Munster, brilliant, I thought. Like
this was the first chance they got in the 22. They end up coming away with a try. Fekitoa, he actually puts a big hit on Munster, and then just manages to wriggle around, get the ball over. So that was telling, because that was the first time they've been in their 22. And then the last time they scored is after the red card. This is the second try. This is the last time Munster scored. You know, they did enough they needed to win, but they're going to have to produce a lot more next weekend. Joel, now I know we only had you for half an hour, so we will let you go now, mate. You get out of here, mate, and do what you've got to do.
So can I just want to comment on this game very quickly before I say goodbye, guys, because I actually think that Munster have been one of the form teams. I thought they'd win this game, and obviously the red card was massively influential. But Munster came here to South Africa, got a win against, you know, the Stormers, and then a draw in Durban, I think it was. So they were certainly the form side. What I love about the way they're playing now, and Graham Roundtree is a good mate of mine from my time at the Leicester Tigers. But they now are starting to play a little bit of the Irish way, the Leinster way. You know, they play keep ball. They wear you out. They tire you down. If you want to beat them, you have to take the points every time there's a point on offer. And Glasgow, to John's point, didn't take those points. You know, you can't get into their 22 and come away with nothing and think you're going to beat them, because next time they get the ball, it takes you 7 or 8 or 10 minutes to get it back from them. They are patient, they are hard, they are physical, and they are very difficult to beat. To beat Leinster will be a massive ask for them, but they certainly have been the team in the last 6 weeks that have really come to the fore and played great rugby, and it's no surprise that they're through to the semis.
Yeah, well, before you go, mate, Stormers, have they got enough to beat Connacht at home?
Yeah, definitely. So the travel is another influence. You know, Connacht will have to travel down here. It's the Cape Town Stadium, the DHL Cape Town Stadium on the weekend. Last weekend we had 48,000 people there. This weekend that stadium will be full. They'll have a full 56,000 people. It'll be heaving. It's the last game at home for sure for Stephen Kitsoff before he comes to Ulster. It'll be a grand occasion, a spectacular occasion, and the Stormers will be almost impossible to beat at home.
Nice one, mate. Great. Thanks for coming on the show again, Joel. Have a great evening.
Guys, only a pleasure. Lovely chatting. Yeah, and we'll chat soon. We'll chat soon. We'll see you in a couple of months.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Cheers, Joel.
He's gone. I don't know why I said that.
Keep in touch.
I want to. He's a great bloke.
Yeah, he's a lovely bloke.
We'll go a little bit more into the Glasgow Munster game, because Stevie, there were a lot of injuries, a lot of HIAs. RJ Snyman went off, Conor Murray went off, Fekitoa went off. So they are down to bare minimum. Even though they won the game, it's they've taken a hell of a battering.
Yeah, they've taken a massive battering. A bit like the Ulster Connacht game. Like, not that there was brilliant standard of rugby, but it was so attritional, so physical, so many bumps and bruises. And even Andy Friend said, you know, this is going to be the hardest thing, is getting these guys patched up to play again next week. And it's exactly the same for Munster. You left out Diarmuid Barron there and Calvin Nash, who also aren't going to be available. So we hear that Andrew Conway's back in training. He's obviously been out for a long time, but it would be a big ask to throw him straight back into a game of this magnitude. So yeah, it's going to be really tough. One thing, I know Joel touched on it there about the way that Munster are playing, a little bit more width, having the pod with the options out the back and being able to hit runner. I think Munster need to do something completely different to beat Leinster. If they just go out and try and play their own game, I think they'll get beaten by 15 points, 20 points. They need to just kick the ball all the time. I don't have the answer. They need to come up with a plan to starve Leinster of as much possession as possible. And that's what Graham Roundtree and the rest, quite possibly. We know that Crowley likes to play. And you've seen in that little pass, a nice little delay on it for Fekatoa to come around the corner. So he does have that to his game. But what's going on with Joey Carberry? He started against, France in last year's Six Nations when Johnny Sexton wasn't fit. Now he's third choice for Munster. It's bananas.
He played
and
this
he was
week.
there
Though.
training, wasn't he?
So I was going to say we saw him there. Crowley, I don't know. Fekatoa took a bad head knock, didn't he? Is he going to play? Is Crowley going to move? Is Conor Murray going to play? Is Peter O'Mahony?
No, Connor's out. Yeah,
is he?
Crowley to 12, Carberry to 10, maybe.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree, Steve. It's easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, I played against Leinster in a European semi-final, and we just couldn't get the ball off them. And then the game's gone. You're like, you came off and you're like, I actually don't know what we could have done differently. Just every time they had the ball, whether they were exiting, they put the ball in the air, they get the ball back. You get the 22 the 22 restart, and they create a set piece off that and score tries. And you're like, well, it's stunning, but exasperating to play against, and the coach's nightmare really to try and come up with a strategy to try and starve them with the ball.
Yeah, it is. Well, that is going to be an intriguing game as to how Munster try and beat and break down Leinster at the weekend. I believe all three of us are there as part of the Viaplay team. Hopefully you got the invite, John. Otherwise, it'd be a little bit awkward now.
No, I'm in, mate.
Yes.
Leave on.
Brilliant. Right. Well, we had a bit of fun last week, and it was Name My Club, and we're going to do it again this week.
Okay.
With some players. So here we go. Who wants to go first?
Frans Malherbe. He's Frans Malherbe.
He's the
no
Stormers.
Yeah, Stormers.
Yeah. I'll give that to John. John, next one.
All right. He plays for the Sharks.
Ooh,
no, he's Cardiff, is he?
Lions.
Oh. No, Lions.
Stevie, who's this guy?
Stormers.
No.
Pepsi, Buthelezi.
Pepsi.
No.
Sharks.
Shit. Bulls.
The Brink.
Oh, sorry.
Brinker.
You go for the last one, Shanks.
Bulls.
I know who this is.
Ruan Drea. Bulls.
Lions.
Yes.
Not great, is it? Not
2 and 5.
Oh, we're going again.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. That's yours, Shanks. He looks like you.
Mate, he's 22 years old.
I know.
What?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, honestly.
He's not 22. He's not
far off.
Yeah, no.
He's Nigel Owen's nephew as well.
Scarlets. Liam Turner. We know. Leinster. Lucio Sordoni.
Anyone? I know this one.
Zebre.
No. Glasgow.
Yeah. You see how I just stalled a little bit there till you said it. Sam Illo.
He looks like a fat Rob Balogun.
He's got the shades on like Ardy Surveyor. Remember Ardy Surveyor played a game with goggles on?
Yeah, that's right. He's Connacht.
He's Connacht. Yeah,
Connacht.
He is. Yeah. Do you want to know that, John? And Alessandro Iscor.
Stormers.
Benetton.
Oh,
baby.
Benetton.
Right.
Baby.
We got it there. Joel would have struggled with that. He would never get Johan Nicholas.
Yeah.
Well, no, he might do. You never know. Right, that moves us on to rants of the week. Do we have any?
Who's going first?
Yeah, it's no Viaplay Golf Day.
Yeah.
It's a real concern. It's starting to really grate on my happiness.
Good for an HR about this.
We could get Viaplay pub golf after the game at the weekend.
Drink responsibly. But but I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I would love to join, but my missus is away to Glasgow for 3 days, so I'm unavailable.
I give up on you, mate. I've given up on you.
Unbelievable,
That's my
yeah.
rant of the week. That's my rant of
Yeah.
the week.
Yeah, just give
Stevie
it right there.
just being flaky. Let down Larry.
Says one
Okay.
1 point Shanklin. 1 pint Shanklin.
Not today. Do we have any internet questions? Have we got any internet questions that have come up? Right. Would you rather be in jail for 5 years or be in a coma for a decade?
Oh my days.
Wow. I'd rather be in a coma for a decade because imagine all the money you save.
I was going to say, and someone might set up a GoFundMe page. You wake up, you're loaded.
And you could wake up and speak Spanish and go live in Spain. I don't know.
Any other
I'd rather be in jail because just go to the gym every day.
There was a lady who woke up from a coma and she had a Chinese accent.
Chinese accent, yeah. That's
right.
the kind of thing Ryan Wilson would do if he
would you he'd just do it, wouldn't he? He'd fake it for 10 years. Would you rather have everyone you know be able to read your thoughts or for them to have access to your internet history? Internet history for me, because I do a lot of private browsing because I buy my wife lots of gifts and I don't want her to see them.
I'm the same. Just buy too many gifts.
Likewise.
Yeah.
We're so nice.
We have that last one. If you're arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you'd done? I think I'd probably get drunk and disorderly if I was arrested with no explanation. Not that I'm trying to paint a bad picture of myself, but I'm actually a pretty clean guy, and that's probably one of my only flaws.
Yeah, probably
John, theft, John.
Tax evasion, probably.
Tax.
Fraud. Ponzi. I'd probably set up a Ponzi scheme or something.
Yeah, well, you stole a career, so
yeah, true. Stealing another one now from my play.
Stevie, what about you? GBH? on an Ulster fan.
Well, it's happened before, so history might repeat itself.
All right, we'll leave it there. Right, we'll have a quick review now of a preview, of the semi-finals. We'll start off with Stormers Connacht. I can't personally see past the Stormers winning that at home. A lot of travel for Connacht. It's a win-win for their mind because if they win, Connacht now, they're through to a final in Dublin. If they lose, what a place to have your end of season drink.
Yeah.
Like,
win-win.
It's amazing. It's win-win. It's win-win.
It's win-win.
Like, you just want to be on that trip, don't you? Even if you're 24th, 25th man, you just, let me go, coach. Let me go.
Oh, it'd be a hell of a way to go.
It'd be, but who do we think is going to win? I'm going Stormers.
Yeah, Stormers,
Stormers by a handful.
Leinster, Munster.
Leinster by
20.
Yeah.
What sort of team do you think they put out, though? Because the following week they have the European Cup. Do you think Jameson Gibson Park will play? Because he seems vital in everything they do. Because you can play Harryburn, you can play Rossburn, you can play Sexton with Jameson Gibson Park, but he's more important, I think, than Johnny Sexton at the moment.
Remember what they did last year against the Bulls at the RDS? They put out, they rested Sexton, they rested a few guys, and Sexton came on when the game was gone. And does that weigh on their minds? Maybe not. I think they're a much better team than they were last year, clearly, but I think they've got too much. They set out a mixed team at the weekend. I think given Munster's injuries, that they'll probably be inclined to do the same and keep their powder dry for a final, knowing that they've got enough quality in that team to rotate a few guys.
Yeah, they'll be too good. Like Munster, I think just missing too many vital players, and I just think Glasgow just absolutely took it out of them. A good result for them, but under the worst possible circumstances, losing all of that quality of players. So I think
it's a shame though, Shanks.
Yeah, it is.
It's a shame. It is. It's a shame. Like you would love to see both teams fully loaded and see how they get on. I think we'd all be in agreement that Leinster would probably shade it and get the win. But as you rightly say, lads, to have that many injuries in a squad that's already got. If you remember, Simon Zebo hasn't been available all season. Keith Earls hasn't been available all season. Andrew Conway, hasn't been available. Like, there's a lot of other lads that have been in and out as well. Fekatoa is not available, and him and Fresh have been going brilliantly well in the centre. So, yeah, it just seems like this mountain's going to be too high for Munster to climb this weekend.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, both games will be live on Viaplay. Stormers versus Connacht, that will be at 3:00, followed by Leinster v Munster. That is at 5:30. We are not back next week. We're having a week's rest. We'll be back on the 24th on Wednesday to preview the final. Stephen Ferris, John Barkley, Joel Stransky, I know he'll still be listening. Thank you for your time today, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.